And I'm the Vice President. Okay, got it. I'm Michelle Piskin. I'm the Vice President of Education and Training for Caring Kind. Caring Kind is one of the leading national organizations for Alzheimer's support, caregiver support, early stage services, not only Alzheimer's disease, but related cognitive disorders. We like to say we wrap you around with services in part of a community in which we can connect you to different resources. For those who are diagnosed, we're a resource. For those who are care partners, we're a resource. Support groups, early stage services, access to legal and financial services, educational webinars and seminars such as this, professional CEU educational seminars. We're one of those trusted partners that when you need help, this is a wonderful place to look and to access us. A good way to reach us, and I will put that in chat, is through our helpline. And I will put that number and that email in chat. I'll also put my email in chat. So should you have any questions or need a resource, I'd be happy to connect you. But we're in for something special with Norma today and tonight. And I've had the distinct pleasure to work with Norma and hear her speak in the past. And I know that everybody who's on this webinar tonight will get a lot of support from Norma with the Lewy bodies diagnosis. If you know somebody, if you're a professional, Norma's an incredible resource and has been in this field a long time. So we'd like to give just a little bit of Norma's background. Norma's knowledge and experience of Lewy bodies dementia began with her personal care of her mom, Lillian, who had Lewy bodies dementia for years. Lil was an inspiration behind the founding of the Lewy body dementia resource center. And Norma has been facilitating the only New York metro area Lewy bodies caregiver support group since 2008. Norma also leads the national group for people living with Lewy bodies. Norma worked as an executive assistant to the CEO of the New York Times Company for over 20 years. And while there, she served as a chairperson of the Work-Life Committee of the New York Times Women Affinity Group, initiated and ran their elder care support group. Her expertise working with top executives at the Times, as well as her managerial experience as executive director and co-founder of What Better Life Looks Like, a nonprofit organization for partners with communities to help individuals imagine, articulate, and create visions for a better world, has prepared her to direct this large project, which is very near and dear to her heart. I am very thrilled to have you here, Norma. We always have such a wonderful turnout because I know what you have to say is so important to so many people. So as we get started, if people wouldn't mind, just tell me a little bit in the chat. Are you a professional? Are you a care partner? Are you a person living with a memory loss diagnosis? And then I will also turn it over to Norma, and I will monitor the chat. Any questions, feel free to put it in chat. If we have a break, raise your hand, and Norma, and we'll certainly answer as much as we can as we go along. Okay, Norma, thank you.
Michelle, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. I'm always happy to work together to collaborate with Caring Kind, who does so much for so many. And we recommend your workshops to everyone so that we don't have to duplicate them. There are certain things that we can do differently and other things that you already have. And we're always grateful for them, for the workshops you have on caregiving and on financial and et cetera. So we don't do those. Michelle, thank you. I'm going to assume that everybody on here does not know much about Lewy body. I can be wrong, and I don't see a lot of people are not showing their faces, so I can't ask about a showing of hands. But in my years of doing this, I'm going to assume that most people here don't know much about Lewy body. So as Michelle mentioned, my mother had the disease for many, many years. She had it for 18 years, which is not the norm at all. But she told me when she first couldn't do her checkbook that first day, and I was literally with her the last moment of her life. And she lived with me the last 8 years she was bedridden. And so I know every aspect of the disease from a caregiving perspective and watching her. And again, her progression was not the norm. But I'll start out by saying that there is no norm. Every person with Lewy body, if you've seen one, you've seen one. Everybody progresses differently depending on their age, on their own physical ailments, and for whatever reason. So to start with, and I started the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center to help people because I saw how much help was needed on an individual one-on-one basis. My mom passed in 2015, and I started the organization shortly after that. So what I would most like people to know is that this disease, though most people you speak with will not have heard of it, is not rare. Just because people haven't heard of it does not make it rare. It is the second most common form of progressive dementia after Alzheimer's disease. There are more people who have I want to say people who have cerebral palsy, ALS, muscular dystrophy. There are more people who have Lewy body than any of those. There are more people who have Lewy body than are HIV positive. It's just not heard of. It's also the disease, and many of you may or may not know, that Robin Williams had, but he never knew he had it. They found that out in autopsy 3 months later. And who knows if he would have known if the outcome would have been different, because he was misdiagnosed, as are so many people misdiagnosed regularly. And I'll talk about why that happens and what can help with diagnose as I move on from that. So the disease is too commonly misdiagnosed as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, and sometimes as a psychiatric disorder. And the differences are, most people, if they hear dementia, they right away say Alzheimer's. But there are other dementias like frontal temporal, like vascular as well. What distinguishes those? People with Alzheimer's have memory issues. And that's key to know that someone has Alzheimer's. There are many other factors as well. I am not a physician. Let me say that, as Michelle read my background. And what's really important, can I just ask everyone if they please mute themselves? Because sometimes there's background noise. Thank you. So to start with, it's not necessarily that someone with Lewy body is going to have memory issues at the beginning. They will later on as the disease progresses. But what you first see is that someone has cognitive issues. And what I mean by that is they have trouble with executive function. And what I mean by that is they have problems with problem solving, with multitasking, with judgment calls. That's where it would start first. That, and the majority of people, though not all, have Parkinson's symptoms. So many people look at this disease and say it's like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's together. That's a simplistic way of saying it, but helps to explain it easily, even though it's different. So when I mentioned Parkinson's symptoms, most people, I was one of them many years ago, think right away the only thing that most lay people know about Parkinson's is that there is a tremor in the hand. And that's what people look for. Well, a lot of people with Lewy body don't have a tremor, but the other symptoms of Parkinson's are slowness of movement, of rigidity or stiffness in the arms or legs, Someone will be shuffling when they walk very slowly. Someone's feet are shuffling, not lifting. And they also may have their chin may be jutting out and their mouth open. It's a typical masked Parkinson's look. Also, there's balance problems. So again, most often people with Lewy body will have these cognition issues and Parkinson's symptoms. In addition to those, there are many other symptoms for Lewy body. One of them is hallucinations. A great many people have visual hallucinations. Some have audio, but it's more common to have visual. And a majority also, I'll say that majority a few times because that's the norm, but it doesn't pertain to everybody. But it's very common for people to see children or small animals and not be frightened by them. They may just see a little girl over here and they might see two cats or a bird. And it's not frightening, but it's something they're seeing. Other people, instead of seeing actual people, see shadows. It's very common for people to see shadows of things from the side of their eye in front, and nobody else is seeing them. Then others have very frightening hallucinations. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And again, some people will have audio. They hear music or they hear people talking, and nobody else can hear that. Some people smell things that others don't smell, and they sometimes can't get rid of that. Another early sign of Lewy body is a REM sleep disorder. They call that a REM sleep disorder means that somebody is thrashing in their sleep. They may hit the person next to them. They are talking in their sleep. They are moving. When we sleep, our bodies are more or less paralyzed in sleep so that when you're running in your dream, your legs are not moving in the bed. If you're throwing a ball, your arms aren't moving. But when you have REM behavior disorder, all of that is happening. And that can be an early sign. It can be at least 10 years earlier on for people also who have Parkinson's and have Lewy body. Also, people have restless leg syndrome. Any sleep type of issue can be an indicator. It doesn't have to be because some people have sleep apnea with none of the rest. But it's an early sign, just as losing a sense of smell, which also pertains to Alzheimer's. There is a visual spatial component, meaning that someone may reach for a glass in front of them, but they're reaching over here to the right or to the left. Or they'll hit a curb because there's a problem with depth perception. That may come later. But key, and please remember this if you don't remember anything else. Key to knowing if someone has Lewy body and being diagnosed correctly by a neurologist, because it's usually a neurologist who can help the most. Most GPs will not know the disease. They'll have heard of it, but it would not be easy for them to diagnose. Key to knowing if someone has Lewy body, and one of the most difficult burdens for families, is that there are fluctuations. And what I mean by that, there's fluctuation in cognition. And someone can be one way this hour, and an hour from now or tomorrow, depending, or a few days from now, they are completely different. They can appear to be having a regular conversation with you at times, and then at other times find it really difficult to answer a question, to know. But I've had brilliant people in the LBD crew group, which is a support group nationally for people who have Lewy body, former psychotherapists, etc., who can explain things when they are clear, just the way I'm speaking now. But at the same time, that morning, they didn't know what to do with a toothbrush. It's very common to have those difficult moments. So all of that. And it's it's the issue with fluctuations with attention. I don't want to give you too many more symptoms, but other symptoms are problems with the autonomic system. And what that means is anything that's working automatically in the system. People have trouble with constipation, with incontinence. They may have a drop in blood pressure, which is called orthostatic hypotension. They can stand and they can drop, and you may think the person has died, but they actually is that their blood pressure has dropped. And that's how falls happen sometimes. Some people have that. They may be hot or cold. There's a lot of things that affect through the autonomic system. And then depression and anxiety. Anxiety, it is a tough one, as are behavior issues as the disease progresses. Now, I know I said a lot there, and I know I didn't have any slides up because I think just looking at them makes it one more confusing than the next. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions at this particular point, though we'll have plenty of time afterwards. So I just want to offer that in case. Yes, David?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, thank you. My husband has been recently diagnosed. He did go to a neurologist and he did have the PET scan and other scans. And the neurologist said that there is some Parkinson's, but definitely Lewy body as well. We've been together 44 years. And throughout most of those 44 years, he's always been a very depressed, anxious person throughout our relationship before this ever happened. So I guess my question is, does the disease progress more quickly, or are there other dynamics that I should be considering? He has Lewy body, but he also is definitively depressed and a very anxious, unhappy guy. What are the links between all of that and what I should be, I'm an LCSW as well, geriatrically trained. I used to work for the New York City Department for the Aging as a supervisor in their call center. And I know Karen Kine very well, and you were referred to me by Joe Fisher, who I know well too. So,
Oh, yes.
so I can't believe this is happening to me, but it is, and I'm handling it as best I can. But my main question is the depression and his anxiety, which he's had all his life, and now he has a layer of Lewy body. How all of that connects? If you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I'll tell you my experience from personal experience, and plus from hearing probably from thousands of people now in the support groups, rather than from a medical perspective, is that many people may have had depression or anxiety before they had Lewy body, but others not. Like my mom didn't, for instance. So it's not necessarily a precursor, either one of them. But if they had it, it usually is exasperated to someone. And so people can be very anxious. And I would say it's one of the most important things to address, whether it be with methods other than medication, playing music. We can talk about other methods like that, whatever you can do in that way. But sometimes when it's really bad, that people need medication to help with that. The same with depression. There is in the older group of people, it generally hits people 70 to 75, the same as Alzheimer's, but many people have been getting it sooner. And what I wanted to say about that is, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. When someone is getting it older, it's also good to have a geriatrician, is what I wanted to say. If someone is 75 or older, rather than going just to a neurologist, it's good to have a geriatrician because they know medications, they know the elder body better than anybody else does. And they can look at everything that's going on. So, David, to answer your question, it's really important. There are two things. I usually leave this more to the end, but I'll say them now because they're critically important. The person with Lewy body needs to feel safe. It's top priority because they will feel anxious because at times they can't verbalize what they want to say. They're very frustrated trying to find words because it's not that they don't know what they want to say, but they cannot retrieve the words. It's a very slow retrieval process. And I remember once I took my mom to a geriatrician who was wonderful after 3.5 years of not being diagnosed. And she said sometimes you have to give someone about 20 seconds until they're able to speak. Now, that's very hard, especially for those in New York. We are speaking very quickly. We're not used to waiting. We are not comfortable with pauses, but sometimes we need that. And I want to encourage people, if you are caring for someone or know someone who has Lewy body, besides being patient, they actually, and I didn't realize this until recently, until they told me, they don't want us to help us with words. And I always thought they want you to help with words so that they're not frustrated. No, they want to try to get it themselves. However, if they're saying a pen, they may mean they want a piece of paper. They just cannot get that word out, and they can't do it. So it's very frustrating to them. So number one, I wanted to say is the safety factor. They need to feel that you are there for them to help with anything that they need. Number two is they also at the same time need to feel in control, because none of us want to be treated as children. And if we're saying, well, it's 11 o'clock, it's time you take a shower now. No, we all do that. And I learned everything the harder way by learning it on my own. We want to ask the person, especially if someone's in a facility and they have times for everything. Not everybody wants to do what they schedule. So instead is, you may suggest, would be a good time for a shower. Do you feel up to it? And if the person says no, and you need a schedule too, of course, but ask how about an hour? Do you think that would be okay? The thing is, we have to give up our schedules if we're caring for someone with any type of dementia, because it's about them, that we are now on their schedules. So the safety part and the control part, I wanted to say, are really important. I don't think I've answered your question, David, but if you want to clarify it, please go ahead.
Well, I was just wondering if the disease progresses more quickly if a person has a history of depression and anxiety to begin with.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's hopeful.
And the truth is, from having spoken to so many caregivers over the years, you never know who's passing in under 2 years, or who's having it for 8 years or 10 or 12, and you just don't know.
No, you've been very helpful. And I like what you said about it's between 70 years of age and 75. I mean, he's 74, and so he falls within that range. And it's very eerie what I'm hearing from you. Helpful, but eerie.
I understand. I'm glad it's helpful. When I said the age, I would say that's the most common. There are plenty of people who get it late 70s, early 80s. I once in a while hear people in their early 90s. And there are plenty who get it in their late 60s more than ever. And then there's early onset. We have an early onset group for people in their 50s and some in their 40s. But that's not common. I'm glad if that was helpful. Does anybody else have?
I have a
Yes.
question in the chat
Sure.
it was actually directed at me, but I think you can answer it. It asked, how useful is a DAT scan? The neurologist was quick to order this, but the writer says, I thought it was diagnosis is best clinical. Is there clarification or is it patient dependent? Husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's by lumbar puncture. Now other possible diagnoses are being considered from the brain. MRI with contrast, are there co-diagnoses possible?
Yes. And when you say comorbidity, meaning multiple dementias, as I think was the question, because
I think that was it, but also how useful is the DAT scan was the first part of that.
Yeah, I have to say that from my understanding, a DAT scan is useful in determining if someone has Parkinson's or Lewy body. They have become they're using them much more often now because they used to be, when I first started this, they only had them in Europe and very few here. Now it's become much more common and that they find it can be helpful. I also, in addition to the DAT scan, so, and yes, and to answer the other part of that question, they are finding that at least up to 40% of people, when they through autopsy, that many people don't in fact have Alzheimer's, or they have Alzheimer's and Lewy body, or a few dementias at all. It's not rare at all. And they're finding that more and more often. Since you mentioned the DAT scan, I want to say at this particular time, there is also a skin test. Most doctors don't know that there is a skin test for Lewy body that can be very accurate. I'll answer a question before I go further on that you can't take a skin test today to say, oh, might I have Lewy body? It doesn't work like that. There have to already be symptoms showing, and you want to confirm it because some tests people are not sure about it. I'm going to put the information in the chat to everybody so that you have information on the for the skin test. It's CND, C Charlie and Nancy D David Life Sciences.com. They have, it's called the SIN1 test. It can be ordered by any doctor, and I believe nurse practitioners as well. They take a small piece of skin from the neck, from behind the knee and the ankle. It takes a few weeks, but they're finding out that it's really accurate. Also, besides that, the lumbar puncture or spinal tap is too, but a lot of people would rather do the skin test, and it is covered by many insurance companies now too for that. Okay, I hope that answers those. Any other questions at the moment? Okay, I also wanted to mention two more symptoms that aren't talked about as much, but the sleep issues, the same way I mentioned the REM sleep disorder for nighttime, there are others who have a lot of trouble sleeping versus the ones who are sleeping and dreaming. But then also there is excessive daytime sleepiness for many. And so even if the person is sleeping all night, they may take a nap in the day. They may take 2 naps. I remember my mother started taking 3 naps. Ma, you napped already, not knowing that's part of the disease. So I'm sharing that with all of you. And when someone wants to sleep, they need to sleep. I get asked the question many times, if someone is sleeping till 11, should I wake them up? Well, if they're sleeping till that time, chances are they needed to sleep till that time. As much as we want to get them up, and as the disease progresses also, you'll find that someone can do 3, right now the person can do 3 or 4 things in the day. Then it'll go to 3, then it'll go to 2, then it might go to 1. And I'm jumping ahead right now, but it's kind of connecting to what else I'm saying. So besides the daytime sleepiness, one topic that it's not talked about too much is apathy. So many people with Lewy body, it's a very common symptom. It may look like they're lazy. Maybe they helped you with something in the kitchen or elsewhere one day, and now they're not in the mood. Or yesterday or last evening, they were looking forward to having even grandchildren come visit, really looking forward to it. They wake up in the morning, they might get out of bed, but don't want to see people. And it's not that they don't want to do it, they can't get the oomph. They just can't do it. And it's very misunderstood because it looks like they're just moody or lazy, and it's not the case. So I just really wanted to bring that up. One of the most important things, why is it misdiagnosed so often, and why is it important to be diagnosed correctly? It's misdiagnosed from my perspective in particular, because all the symptoms that I mentioned, the fluctuations, the REM sleep disorder, visual spatial aspect, you can't see in a doctor's office. You're not going to see that in your 20-minute, 30-minute office visit. It's really important to keep a list of every single thing that you notice, even if you think it's minor. He's doing this now. She all of a sudden is doing this or not doing this. Keep a list because that will help the neurologist or the geriatrician to know what's happening. And so there's no cure for Alzheimer's at this time, with Parkinson's or Lewy body. So why is it so important to be diagnosed correctly? Why? People with Lewy body are extremely sensitive to medications, and the wrong ones can make them much worse. That doesn't happen generally to people with only Alzheimer's or only Parkinson's, from my understanding. One, though I don't generally speak about medications because I'm not a doctor, one of the drugs from people, remember when I mentioned earlier that some people have very frightening hallucinations. They can see people in their house. It may look like animals coming in or some weird things altogether. They come very frightening, like someone's breaking in the house. When that is happening, that's the time medication should be considered. And the newer antipsychotics can help with that, and you would talk to neurologists. What you never want to have someone with Lewy body given is Haldol, which is one of the older antipsychotics, which can put them into what they call a neuroleptic shock syndrome. It can make them much worse. And so I tell anyone who's dealing with someone with Lewy body, if someone's going in the hospital, any place, make sure you say that the person is allergic to it so that they don't give it. It's just Dr. Beauvais from the Mayo Clinic said that quite some time ago, and I repeat that because he's the authority, and he too, it feels very strongly that it should never be given. So I want to share that information, and I'll also tell you we have a medical alert card on our homepage of our website, so it will mention that and other meds that shouldn't be given, and I'll give you that information in a little while. So that's why it's really important to be diagnosed correctly. Even though I said it took my mom 3.5 years to be diagnosed, I find from that was starting 25 years ago. It has gotten better, but I can still tell you that people are misdiagnosed all the time, unfortunately. Some people are still giving Haldol. Some people have it in the hospice pack. And there's just so many misunderstandings about this disease. And the burden for caregivers is really enormous because they are not just dealing with memory issues. They're dealing with memory issues, physical issues, mental issues, and the fluctuations. So you don't know what to expect from one moment to moment, from one day to day. So I really encourage people to join a support group. Caring Kind has wonderful, I think over 100 support groups. We have support groups specifically for caregivers caring for someone with Lewy body because it is different. The Alzheimer's groups are helpful from a caregiving perspective, as are the Parkinson's. But Lewy body, because of all the different symptoms, it's really helpful to be in a group. I'll give you that information afterwards. And also, we have the only live helpline for Lewy body in the US. Yeah, so I just want you to know, and we're available 365 days because we do want to always make sure that you never have to worry. It's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And every person who answers that helpline is a former caregiver of a family member who had Lewy body, because want to make sure that it's fully understood when someone calls and needs help. Now, any questions before I go further? I know I said a lot. Okay. Mainly what I was, yes, Sydney? please, you're on mute.
So my husband's doctor and gerontologist both recommended that he take Seroquel because he has the sleep disorder and activity in his sleep. As far as I know, most of his hallucinations are kind of friendly. There's a man he sees who smiles and waves at him. But I did notice a change in small animals, skunks, dogs, a bear, not a small animal, but he saw a bear once.
No,
And I was wondering, because he has not actually been diagnosed with Lewy body. He was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. His gerontologist said that they can overlap, but she believes that Alzheimer's is his primary. But I am coming to believe that it's the other way around. And because I live with him and I see what's going on all the time. In the past, I had thought of making notes, and I just didn't do it. But I think I will start doing that rigorously now. And Jim is a mild-mannered sort of guy, friendly, good sense of humor. But every now and then he seems to have a little bit of paranoia. And but I was worried about the Seroquel because my daughter said it's really bad for people with Alzheimer's. I mean, not with Alzheimer's, but with Lewy body. And if he has Lewy body, not Alzheimer's, as his main issue, then is Seroquel one of the drugs that they do not recommend?
so again, Seroquel is one of the antipsychotics that is most commonly used because many people are helped by it. You always want to, for any medications, and I know you're all senior doctors, always want to slow on any medication at the lowest dose first and go slowly if it needs to be upped. Seroquel does help many people with Lewy body. So again, though it's very common, I should say, for people who are having bad hallucinations or who are very agitated to be given Seroquel, and it can work well for many. I just want to point out, since you asked the question, that then you will see others who would say, my husband was given Seroquel and it made him much worse. So it can happen, but generally speaking, for many, it can work. Sydney, did you have, you're on mute, but just double checking. And yes, I would highly recommend that you write down all the symptoms, because if he's seeing, how long is he, when was he diagnosed even with Alzheimer's?
2019, but it was noticeable before that he was losing the plot.
I understand. I can tell you that 100% of people, 100% of people who call or join a support group say, but when I think back, symptoms started much earlier. It's very common because, we didn't know what was happening. We don't know what Lewy body is, and why would we think that? But if he's having hallucinations and all that, yes. So I would go with the note, and And I didn't know if I answered. Did you have another question or?
Briefly, there was another thought in my mind, but it has disappeared.
That's okay. We can come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody else, I think, wanted to ask. I'm not sure. No? Oh, Mary. Yes.
Hi, yeah, back to David's point too with the depression. I think that's one of the challenges at families, and I'm a professional and my dad also had dementia. What is the apathy versus what is depression? Because they both look so similar that I think sometimes families ignore the apathy when in reality a antidepressant or psychotherapy or something can be helpful. So it's like, again, how do you tell the difference between what's apathy from the disease and what's apathy from depression? It's a tough line to try to figure out.
I've heard the description of it, and I wish I remembered it. It was a good description I once heard, and I can't think of it right now. But I can tell you that the depression you'll see the depression you see is pretty solid and steady, and apathy really comes and goes. I find that the people that we talk about, it really depends on the day. That, in fact, the people with Lewy body will talk about, I really want to see my grandchildren tomorrow. This one man has 4 grandchildren. So looking forward to seeing them. And that when he woke up in the morning, it's like, oh no, please, I don't want to see them. That's not happening every day, the way, depression would be. It really fluctuates the same way that the cognition does. And it can be at different times of the day, because sometimes someone can be like that for a few hours and then snap out of it, because for a lot of people, it's as when they have Lewy body and the fluctuations appear. And Sydney, I wanted to say that to you, because if your husband has fluctuations the way I'm talking about it, that's a telltale sign about Lewy body. People with Alzheimer's, in my understanding, do not react that way. It's as if a light switch was turned on at times. They can be one way, and then all of a sudden they're speaking to you about politics, or whatever's current events. Everybody who has Lewy body, I don't know why, has to watch CNN or has to watch Law and Order. Let me also say, I was trying now, I thought I would give some helpful hints, and we can always ask another question. You can always ask more questions, but it really helps not to be watching Law and Order and CNN, for example, because people with Lewy body can then be, first of all, you want them to feel good energy. Besides, they will get upset by what's happening in the news. They'll get stuck on that. They want to know how they can fix it. It becomes doom and gloom, but also they become part of the story many times. They become part of the movie, of the TV show, of the news show. They're now partly in it. So I want to suggest, watch things that are uplifting. You can have people do that. Play music if they will tell. There are some people who don't want to hear music, but that's usually more rare than people who want to hear it. It can be extremely soothing. And as we know with people with Alzheimer's, there are people with Alzheimer's who can't speak, yet they can sing a song. It's remarkable because it uses the other side of the brain. And so other aspects of how to treat someone with Lewy body, they do not like loud noises. They don't like them at all. So they want to be in a calm, comfortable space. Also, especially with holidays coming, if you are having company or going somewhere, they are not comfortable being in a large group. So even if there are, say, 10 people at a table, there are too many conversations going on, it becomes overstimulating. They do much better in a smaller group, say of 4 people. A lot of times a person with Lewy body will say, I have to go lay down if it's a large group at a table, or have them sit in a different space with a few people because it becomes overwhelming. And then they are also aware that they can't keep up with the conversation. They also feel like they can't get the words out, and they get frustrated and they feel badly about that. So I wanted to mention that it helps to have structure so that they can depend on certain things. It's a way of feeling safe, as I mentioned before, having a schedule. However, don't mention too far ahead of time what you're going to do. If you have a doctor's appointment in a week, I see Sydney, it's that you're in. If you have a doctor's appointment in a week, do not mention that to the person with Lewy body. Now, they can get stuck on it. They want to know, is it tomorrow? Do I have to get ready now? They're going to obsess about it because it's hard for them to navigate the time. Time is an issue. They can't tell the time of day, morning or night. That happens to people with other dementia as well. And it's very confusing to them. So the best thing to do when you have an appointment is to either say the night before or the morning of, so that the person isn't hyper focused on it. It works well. Don't give too many choices when you're asking. The same way I said before about it's important to have a person be in control, but you don't want to be like Baskin Robbins and list every flavor that there is. You want to give a choice, maybe vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and let them choose from that and not have too many. Please speak slowly, as I mentioned before. Speak slowly, wait for a response, one topic at a time. Don't jump from topic to topic. And when it comes to hallucinations, there are also delusions. So to distinguish between them, people will see people or animals that are not there. Delusions are when people are making up stories or getting paranoid that someone took my wallet. Those are more delusions than hallucinations. And people with Lewy body can certainly have both. And they can get very agitated. They can become aggressive as well. And it does not help, except if you know your family member well and you've had a conversation and this particular family member understands that they have Lewy body and that when they have a hallucination, oh, that's not real. It's Lewy talking or something like that. There are those who understand that level. There are others who never want to know what they have or can't put that together. So it's suggested if someone is having hallucinations or delusions, the best method is to redirect. You want to change the topic to whatever topic would be comfortable for them. You don't want them stuck on that one hallucination of this skunk. You mentioned a skunk, Sydney, is in the house. And so I'll give you an example. I've used this many times, but I just think it works well. My mom had hardwood floors, and at this time she was using a cane, and she was pointing. You know, there's all markings in the floor, and she was pointing and saying, "Look at all the bugs on the floor." And I was very close to her, and I was, "Ma, there are no bugs on the floor," because I didn't know better. But the best way to handle that would be, go sit down. I'm going to get the broom. I'm getting the bugs out of here. You don't have to worry. This way she feels safe. She knows that you're believing her. She also doesn't have to think of a solution because you're taking care of it and it's done. So if somebody's having a hallucination, please just say, and if it's hard for you to, it's hard for some people to say, okay, yes, I see that skunk in here, and you don't want to lie. You can say, I know you see that, but I'm not able to see it. And so to confirm what they're saying, but never argue with them. Don't say it's not here. I don't know what you're saying. Don't argue, because that can be very frustrating. Separately from that, I want to say, as the disease moves on, they can get very bored because unfortunately they can't do what they used to do. Some people played sports, some people played instruments. No matter what they did, they cannot do what they used to do. It's very common for someone my mom used to read the New York Times from front to back, and then she was looking at just the front page. And so when there's something that somebody is able to do, have them do it as many times as you can. And know that when I say that someone's bored, if a new person comes, they're meeting a new person for some time, you'll see them wake up because it's new energy. And the same way when you go to a doctor, you may all have experienced this. It's called showtime. All of a sudden, you're telling the doctor what's happening, but the person is not doing that in the doctor's office. And to the contrary, is having a whole conversation, looks like nothing's wrong with them. That's called showtime because they get enough energy up to perform for the doctor or for people who have come to see them, because they're trying their best to do that and they're able to do that. I can tell you what happens after that. Somebody said they experienced it this week. Okay. What happens after that is the person will usually sleep for hours later that day or the next day because they're completely drained from doing that. Did someone want to comment on that? I know someone wrote that in the chat, but maybe the chat was enough. Yes, it happens. It happens regularly. It's not at all unusual. So the same way when I was saying about, oh, I want to mention some other things. You may have things in your home that are abstract paintings or a lamp in a corner, especially at the sundowning type of day. It doesn't mean that everyone with Lewy body has sundowning, but it may look like a man in the corner instead of a lamp. That picture, you want to have things that are very simple, not hard to figure out, particularly on floors, going from one room to the next. People with Parkinson's and people with Lewy body who have the Parkinson symptoms can stop in a doorway, because if you're going from a wood floor, say, to a carpet, they stop because it looks to them as if they're going to fall in a hole. It's hard for them to distinguish, and they'll just freeze because they can't tell the difference. So just know that. And just as a helpful hint, if someone freezes with the Parkinson's, they just can't walk, they just freeze. Start counting as if someone's marching. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like a metronome. And that helps, because again, that's the other side of the brain that it's helping with. It's just another helpful hint. One of the most important things I can share, other than safety and control, is that your energy is really important. And people with Lewy body, though they are not able to do many things in later stages, for those, and I just want to say, I'm sorry for all of you who are here who are in early stage. Please know that things I'm mentioning, some of them you may not ever see, or you may see way later on. So I know it can be scary listening to this now when you're nowhere near that. And I'm just saying everything that I know from beginning to end. They are very sensitive to energy. And so if you are frustrated, if you are angry, which we all will be as caregivers, you cannot get away with it. You just can't. You will try your best, but there'll be times that you do. Please know that that other person is going to feel that. But when you're able to stay in the patience and the loving energy, they feel that even more that we do on a regular basis. Love and that connection goes a long, long way, like we all want. I just really want to stress that. So I think that's basically it before I tell you about the resource center and the resources that we have. And so I'd like to take some questions before I go to
There's a
that.
question in chat. What are your thoughts or suggestions on traveling? Airplanes, trains, cars with people with Lewy body. Do you recommend long distance travel? Are there travel resources available to caregivers?
And again, it's always very individual. So depending on the stage that person with Lewy body is in. And when I say stage, a lot of people will call and say, I'm not sure if my husband is in stage 4 or 5. I'm not sure. Or how long will someone live? From my opinion, don't worry about the stage, because everybody progresses differently. And if he's in stage 4, it really doesn't matter what stage it is. Just be where you are now. If the person seems able to travel, you know how they are at home. You know how they are when you go to a restaurant or to a store. Is that person able to navigate in the best way? Does it become extremely confusing? You also want to have them enjoy. So if they want to go on vacation, know that you're able to go on a plane, you're able to go in a car, but know that there are certain things that you would want to think of ahead of time to be sure that they are keeping busy, that they have a wheelchair, access as you're getting to the plane, that there's one on the other end. You find a place that you're going, not Disneyland, where it's going to be conducive to something that they really like. But also know that it can be confusing when you get to a hotel or to a family member's home. it can be, and you really need to weigh that before you go. I'm not saying I took my mother on a vacation. It was the last vacation I knew it would be. She had a lot of dementia. She was shuffling. She was using a cane and a walker. I took her to 3 trips in California. I will never regret that I did that. It was not easy. So if someone is earlier stage and it's something you would both like to do, I say go do it and enjoy it to the best that you can. I just had one of the guys who's in the LBT crew, he literally an hour ago texted me that he and his husband are on a cruise. And he said, I'm finding parts difficult because he's in the scooter. But I said, do what you're enjoying. And he said, yes, I'm trying to do that. And I said, and enjoy the food. And he wrote back, I'm doing that. So just really find the things that people like that, and I just want to add also, the same way I'll put in the chat about our helpline. Please know that you can call us any day. If for some reason you get a recording, just know we're calling you back that same day. So don't hesitate. If you want to say, should I do this? What should I do on vacation? Just call. Yes, David.
Quick question. Bob is in the very early stages of the illness. Although everything that you said is helpful, of course. What are your thoughts on clinical trials and the patch? I read in my research that I've done on the internet that there's a patch that he can wear. We have a visit with his neurologist at Northwestern Memorial in Chicago next month in January. And I'm putting together a list, and I'm going with him, obviously, to the appointment. I'm not sure he wants me to go, but I'm going to be there right by his side. And I have a whole list of questions that I'm putting together to present to the neurologist. And 2 of them were the patch and clinical trials. And I was wondering your thoughts on both of those.
Well, I would say the patch, for those who don't know, many people, the first line of treatment generally is Aricept or Exelon, which are it's the same class of med. It's the same meds that are used for people with Alzheimer's. It's to help slow the progression of the disease. So certainly the patch is something at the right time that would normally be given. If and when you think you don't always have to start it so early. If his cognition is good, talk to the neurologist about that. And the clinical trials, that is always something, again, that's personal. We also have on our website the link for clinical trials, which goes around for the whole world. It will show you, if you put in Lewy body, the whole page will come with the clinical trials for Lewy body nationwide and around the world. And many times, some of the people won't be accepted depending on age or how long they have it. Many things, though, are for people who are earlier diagnosed. And when I said it's a personal decision, David, I meant that some of them require you to an office visit once a month. So you would have to decide, is this something I can do or want to do versus others? They're very specific at times.
Okay. And the patch, I think I'm premature because he's still, I see very few of the symptoms that you've been mentioning. So I think the patch right now is premature, I think. But
yes, I think, right. And as Paul just mentioned in the chat, that's called Exelon. That's why I said Aricept, and Exelon, also known as rivastigmine. Yes, that would be the patch. And a neurologist, it depends on the neurologist who is doing what. Anybody else have a question? Yes, Elizabeth.
Great, thanks. I want to just say thank you so much for this. Some of it is just so validating. I can't even begin to describe. So thank you so much. I guess I have 2 different questions. A big issue for my dad is the boredom in the evening between the time he comes up from dinner, he's in an assisted living place, and when he can actually fall asleep. And very often he will rely on my sister or me being on the phone with him because his anxiety and boredom combines to put him in a really uncomfortable place and very different from the way he is during the day. And so I don't know if you've had other people who have had this sort of, he can't see the TV clearly enough. He can't fully understand what they're talking about. He has on New York One all the time. We've been trying to get him to listen more to music. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. Or we can't be there every evening. We can't pay for a caregiver for more hours because as it is, everything's so expensive. I maybe in some ways I'm looking for just some sort of magic something or other, but if you've heard of things that people have used or do, I would love to hear.
I wish I had an answer for you because I was going to suggest, is there someone other than yourself, and your sister who could possibly be there like an aide? But I just heard what you said. Is it possible that there's a staff member there who you can become more friendly with, who can possibly, because that, it sounds like he does, it happens to many people. It's in the sundowning time that'll
Right.
become anxious and more confused. So he needs that, and you're there for him. Other than music, I think it's whatever calming effect you can think of in that particular facility.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be, is he in his room? He's in his room waiting.
In his room by that time because his aide leaves around 7:30, so better that he's in the bed and safe than elsewhere in the building.
Oh, so that it's after he eats, before he goes to
Yeah,
sleep. Is that what you
yeah,
said?
exactly. After he eats before he goes to sleep, exactly.
I'm wondering, I don't know, it depends on the facility. Is it possible for him at all to stay in a group of people longer versus in his room alone? Probably not.
It's not it's never really been his way, and it's certainly not his way now. His tolerance for other people has diminished because his cognition of what's going on has diminished, and then he feels crappy and can get angry. Not bad angry, but frustrated, understandably.
Yeah. The only other suggestion I have is if there's possibly any other, Mary has a suggestion. Good.
Oh, good.
Right,
Thank you.
I work assisted living with memory care, and this is, something very common where the family says, we need to be there, but we can't be there all the time. Is we have had our family members make a video of maybe reading a favorite scripture or a favorite poem, or even just a message that the staff can play for him when he feels like he needs to see you. It's just a reassuring message that we know you're there, Dad, or just, again, reading a favorite poem or something so that he can see you, but not have to have you be there. So I don't know if that's a possibility, but we know that it's worked for many of our families in our communities.
I really appreciate that. I'm not sure that would satisfy him. He is as strong-willed as he ever has been. And so
I hear that about Lewy body people all the time.
yeah, well, here we go. The other question I have, totally unrelated, is there a recognized cause for Lewy body? And is there any, selfishly asking, is there a genetic aspect that people are at all aware of?
Nobody knows what the cause is at this point at all. And they always say that it's not inherited, that Lewy body isn't. I think I once read that it's a little higher percentage than those who don't have it in the family. I also think that there's too much they don't know.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it is not a genetic disease.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
I've learned
Sure.
so much. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Anybody else?
Norma, I
with a
just want to
question?
add that there was a message to me in chat for you too, that this one participant, she said she traveled with her husband a few years ago and asked the neurologist to please write a brief letter on hospital stationery in advance. She slipped it to the letter to the flight attendant, who became frustrated with her husband, and it helped a lot in understanding. And she just wanted to pass that along to others who could find that helpful.
Thank you, Michelle. That's so interesting because we have a card that is going on my website, I think tomorrow morning. And literally tomorrow morning, we have a couple of downloads, so I'll talk about that right now. But if you can ask questions afterwards anyway. Right on the home page of the website, I can show you a few things if you like. There's the medical alert card to be printed out. Then we have a caregiver, a symptom tracker, which we also just put up about a week ago. It's a monthly symptom tracker. So if you want to print that out to keep track of symptoms, so same way we were just talking about Sydney, to do that. It's an easy way to do it if it's not adding work to your day. And right underneath that, again, it should be up. It might be up tomorrow morning. If not, it'll be up the following day. It's going to be a card for people with Lewy body, business side card front and back, and it will say, I have Lewy body dementia, please be patient. So those cards for those who want to use that. And then our information is on the back of the card in case people need more information on the disease and want it. Okay, great. I'm happy that's going to be helpful. What I'm going to do now is put in the website. So we are the Lewy Body Dementia Resource Center. The short link, so that nobody has to type that, is LBDNY, so you can remember it more easily. The helpline, which is available every day, specifically for Lewy body symptoms versus other dementia issues. I'm putting it here. I would use the 516 number, it's just easier. And I just want to say to anybody who's on here, if you have any questions anytime, this is my email address. Please don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. You can also call the helpline if for some reason you didn't want to speak to someone else and you want to speak to me and get a message to me. I'm okay with that. I'm usually on Mondays on the helpline, but that may change a little bit. If Michelle, would it be okay if I just show the website for minutes? If you could give me to the share. Oh, I have to get that online first. Let me just see if I can do that. Okay. I can do it now, or let me see. Can everybody see this? Okay. So I just, two other quick things, and I won't take long on here, but we have a book that just came out by one of our board members, Mary Lou Falcone. I didn't see it coming. It's about her journey with her husband. It's an excellent book. It just came out in October. Mary Lou and I meet with Caring Kind all the time, and I can highly recommend that. We have, it has very helpful things for people dealing with Lewy body and other dementias as well. And also the other thing that's moving right here is we have a documentary coming out. There's a 3-minute clip if you're interested in. This will be coming out in 2024. Part I wanted to show you all is the website has everything you want to know about Lewy body in general. This particular part here, Views from Within, are 10 short videos of 20 minutes or less on each symptom. So one will be just hallucinations, one is just fluctuations, etc. Each video has people with Lewy body, caregivers, and physicians, so that you get a good idea of what all of these things look like from a personal perspective. And then as I'm scrolling down right here, this is where I said the medical alert card. You can click right here and print out the medical alert card, which mentions the medications that people shouldn't be given. For instance, I just want to say Benadryl is one that you don't want to give. Cough medicine with DM. Ambien, just know that someone shouldn't be given Ambien in general. Then there's the monthly symptom tracker. And tomorrow or the next day right here will be the card saying that I have Lewy body. Also, I also think it's extremely helpful if you click on this, which most people don't know is here. Differences between Lewy body, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's disease. It's a chart that we put together. Here's Lewy body, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. It really shows the different stages of that and the differences that they are. I knew that was going to happen. Sorry. Okay. There are some other things on the website which I know you can find yourself, but those were the things I wanted to point out the most. I'm wondering if anyone has any more questions. Nobody.
Um,
Yes, David.
I live in Chicago now. I was born in Brooklyn, lived most of my life in Manhattan, but now I'm in Chicago. Do I contact Joe Fisher for support groups? I mean, what's
No,
happening in
I love
Chicago?
Joe, but don't contact Joe. No,
Okay.
Joe's extremely helpful. So what you can do is also on the bottom of the homepage that I just showed you, there's a place to sign up for our newsletter. Just
Okay.
put your email in there. You'll get a monthly newsletter with helpful things about Lewy body, etc. And also it'll show the support groups that I mentioned for early onset. And if someone has Lewy body specifically and they want to be in a group for people with Lewy body, that will be on there. But David, I'd be happy to send you or anybody else who's out of state a group via Zoom in Illinois. There'll be one or two that there won't be
Okay.
much of a choice.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Or you can email me directly, either one of those. Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
can email me if you want that, and I'll put you on the list.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure. What were the meds you mentioned? I apologize, but I'm taking notes, but I think the meds I mentioned, well, I wasn't really mentioning any, but I think David mentioned the patch, which is the Exelon patch. Also, Aricept is another one. Aricept now comes in a patch. I just found that out. It's under a different name though. Those help slow the progression and help with clarity, with cognition. And then, yeah, just again, also, if people are given medications for the Parkinson's symptoms, there are many people who have a lot of stiffness and rigidity. Oh, the ones not to take. Okay, I'll be right with you, North. So when you just have to be really careful, if someone is given a medication and you see side effect right away that it's not agreeing with them, question it. Just know that you may not want to continue it at all because a lot of times you'll see that rather quickly. Yes, North, if you go to the website, lbdny.org, if you click on the medical alert card, you can print that out. It will mention quite a few of the medications not to be given. I just added cough medicine with DM. It can be a little confusing. You don't want to give Ambien. Benadryl can make them sleepy, confused, but and none of the old antipsychotics like Haldol. Haldol is the one never. Thorazine, any of those.
Thank you.
Again, I'm repeating what doctors on my board, the Mayo Clinic, National Institute of Health say, not what Norma Loeb says. So I'm just
Understood.
letting you
Thank
know
you.
that.
Thank you so
Sure,
much.
you're welcome, Norma.
Thanks for everything.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, if nobody else has questions, I'm happy
I
again.
never-
You can always call. Yes? Oh, Sydney,
Um,
sorry.
Yeah. So I live in Maine, and do you know of any Lewy body organizations here?
There
where I
aren't any,
could-
there are only 2 Lewy body organizations in the whole country. I used to be on there's one in Georgia. I was on their board for 3 years. So it's only us, but there is a support group for Lewy body caregivers. There's one in Boston, but there's also one for your area that she does separately for the whole area there. And I can send that to you.
Oh,
It's led by
please.
a woman named Victoria who has been doing this as long as I have.
This is really.
And they're
good
by
news.
Zoom, so just know you can attend for an hour and a half. And if you join in those groups, I know that I don't know all the groups personally, but find them helpful for particular issues that you're going through versus regular caregiver issues, which is also important. What are thoughts on routine medical exams? It depends on the age, Teresa. I would always check that's why it's important to have a geriatrician, particularly on the age of the person, because they've changed the rules with mammograms depending on people's age as well. Chapters have LBG related groups. Some do, some of them do. Yes, they do. And if sometimes that's the only group in a state, and I would know that. So if anybody needs something, it can let them know that, but it's, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, I think that's it, Michelle. Michelle, I want to thank you for having me. Financial support groups. No, that is a Caring Kind has a wonderful financial workshop. And so check on their website for that. They do a
And
good
we
job with that.
offer legal and financial seminars monthly, actually twice a month. We also offer Medicaid home care seminars twice a month. So feel free to take, I'll put in our.
Michelle, do you know if you were offering any more someone asked me about that. I was sorry you didn't see it on bathing. There were a couple ones that you had like once and people wanted to see it.
So we have those up on our YouTube channel, so the links are on our website.
Oh, you do?
Yes, and we're
Okay.
offering that webinar, Take the Battle Out of Bathing, again, coming up in the winter.
Oh, but they are on there,
2024. Yes.
right? Yeah,
Mhm.
I would highly recommend anyone who wants financial information, the caregiving, the Caring Kinds workshops are excellent. In fact, I recommend the same attorney who does that to everybody because he's wonderful.
Yes, I'll just put in our overall website here. You can certainly, this seminar tonight will also be up, the recording. So if you missed anything or you wanted to go back and watch it and watch Norma again, you're welcome to do that. We want to have access, for all of our webinars for as many people who want to be part of them and who can benefit from it. So sometimes we library of some of these talks, you may find a lot that you will find helpful. So Norma, first of all, thank you so much again for being here tonight. If we have no other questions, I know we're going to ask you back again next year.
My pleasure, Michelle. It's a pleasure to work with you and Caring Kind.
Yes, and know that when we do get calls to our helpline that are related to Lewy bodies, it's Norma's number that we give. There's no
Thank you.
reason to duplicate good work. We want to showcase other people's good work, and so
Same here.
that's collaborative effort. And so we're happy to be able to do that and give anybody who needs Norma's number. There's nothing like asking the expert. So I thank you all for being here tonight. Call us if you need us. Call Norma if you need her. We're all here to help you. Know that it takes more than a village and a community to help each other. And so we want to be of help, of support, and resources for all of you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Norma.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
My
you so
pleasure. Thanks
much.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Michelle. Thank you,
Terrific.
everyone.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. For those who are still here next month, next
Thank
Monday
you.
night education meeting will be on cannabis and dementia. So
Oh, when is that one?
I will give you the date for that. I should have had that ready.
No, that's okay. I'll look on your site when you have it.
Yeah,
I get your
yeah.
email.
It's
I
our
get your
January.
emails anyway.
January
January.
8th.
Okay. At what
It's-
time?
It's at
Same
6
like
o'clock.
this?
Yep.
Okay.
With Dr.
And
Ken
cannabis is
Weinberg.
legal in Illinois, or at least Chicago.
Yep, it's in New York too.
Correct.
So cannabis and dementia. So come listen to
Okay.
Dr. Weinberg
Great.
speak.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you all. Have a
Bye,
happy
everyone.
holidays, and we'll see
Bye.
you
Have a good
soon.
You
holiday.
too. Happy holidays.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Norma.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.